to Pruitt Homestead. Today is Tuesday and it is Tomato Talk Tuesday. We just started doing this a couple of weeks ago where we just spend a few minutes on Tuesday evening in the greenhouse talking about tomatoes. And we talk about tomatoes because I absolutely love growing tomatoes, and I hope you do too. At least I hope that's why you're here, is because you love growing tomatoes. Um, I started growing tomatoes. If this is your first time at Pruitt Homestead, let me tell you who we are. We live on a quarter-acre piece of property in the middle of a subdivision. We have gardens in our front yard, gardens in our backyard, and that supplies us with about 80% of all the vegetables we consume right here on this piece of property. We have an egg layer flock that gives us all the eggs that we consume, and then we raise meat chickens a couple of times a year, and that's 100% of all the chicken we consume. We just don't buy chicken from the grocery store. We buy very little from the grocery store anymore. You know, some things we can't grow here: sugar, flour, items like that, butter. But even things like butter and milk, we try to find alternative resources that are local for us to take advantage of. We don't even buy beef in the grocery store anymore. We buy that directly from the farmer, and we feel like it's a better fit for who we are and for our lifestyle. We do all of that because we believe we have a broken food system, right? That grocery store does not have my best interest at hand, and I learned that quite a few years ago when I was craving a really, really good tomato sandwich. I mean, y'all, I needed it badly. And I was standing in front of the tomato bin at Food Lion and looked at those tomatoes, and I just knew it wasn't going to satisfy the need in that tomato sandwich. So on that day, instead of spending my hard-earned dollars on what the grocery store said was good for me, I left and I went and bought a tomato plant, and it was a Cherokee purple tomato plant, as a matter of fact. And I started growing that tomato right in my front yard. I mean, it was, back then, it really wasn't that many years ago, but it felt odd to stick a tomato in the front yard and grow that. And I tell you what, when that first tomato ripened and I had that tomato sandwich, I knew right then that if I could do that, if I could satisfy that need in my household, there was a lot of needs that I could satisfy. So I made the decision to start growing my own food, right? And then Noelle came along and she was on board with it, man, and she's such a great encouragement to me in doing this right here on this quarter-acre piece of property in the middle of a subdivision. Our mission statement is to be self-sufficient. We feel like we do okay, right? For where we are, what we're doing, we feel like we do okay. And the second part of our mission statement is to encourage others. And that's what this time is. This time is us chatting about what we do here at the homestead, encouraging you with the example of being self-sufficient or practicing subsistence agriculture right here in the middle of a subdivision. A lot of people have restrictions, we hear all the time, we have a homeowners association, or my neighbors might get upset. I wouldn't worry too much about your neighbors. Our neighbors love what we're doing, and they're highly encouraged. We have one neighbor that got on board, and he's growing part of his own groceries now also. And it's just so awesome to see that. The fever is catching on around as people drive by and see what we're doing here. So we hope to encourage people to do what we do. If you do live in a neighborhood where there's a homeowners association, friends, there's a lot of plants that are pretty, and you can still eat them. Here's a great example. That why not grow a tomato in your front yard? What are they going to say about that? But How about some basil, right? We got some basil here. Um, uh, Thai basil. There's just a lot of stuff, even medicinal stuff. Mullein, right? Wild lettuce, and we could just call it ornamental, right? It's ornamental until you put it in the frying pan with whatever it is that you might be cooking. As you jump on, say hi, let me know you're here. Get your questions together. If you are growing tomatoes, man, I want to hear your questions. I want to hear what's going on in your garden. I also want to encourage you, send us some pictures. If you've got some great tomatoes going on, or if you've got some struggling tomatoes, share that with us. We would love to be able to share what you're doing in your garden with your permission, of course. You can send that through our Facebook page. Just send us a message, or you can send it to our email address, and that's pruitthomestead@gmail.com. So let's chat about tomatoes. I told you a couple of weeks ago that I was starting to sucker tomatoes, right? And I told you that we can take those suckers and just stick them in the dirt and they'll make a tomato, right? Here's a perfect example. That was a sucker on a tomato plant. I pulled it off, stuck it in a pot, and it's growing. It's a very healthy plant. And I said it, I think it was last week. Suckers are so much more prolific than seed plants, right? A seed has to go through its cotyledon stage, and it has to invest a lot of energy producing a root system. When you have foliage like this that can create sugars and really boost that root growth quickly, um, man, you can make a tomato plant really quick. Matter of fact, I picked some suckers off of plants a couple of days ago, and I potted them up today because I want to make sure that I've got some plants just in case I have some failures. I've got a couple of plants in the front yard that just don't look that healthy. I don't know what's going on with them. They're in the hydroponic system, and so they get the same food that everybody else gets. There's no reason for them to be suffering, but they are, right? And so all I can do is replace those plants. There's a fine line between fighting to save a plant and recognizing when it's just not going to be productive. So I can have tomato plants on standby, right? And just drop them in a pot and keep on rolling. So I want to talk about fertilizer this week. Fertilization for tomatoes is super, super, super important. Tomatoes are heavy, heavy feeders. I told you a couple of weeks ago, or I keep telling you. Hey, Steve Bowen, I'm so glad you're here. Chandra, I'm so glad you are here. Chandra, you said I have a few suckers that are looking good. Yeah, you can take those. I hope you've taken those suckers and put them in pots as spare plants because, like I said, it's always nice to have a spare plant on hand in case you have failures or you find a spot in the garden which you freed up some space. You can plant that tomato and make more tomato sandwiches. So yeah, fertilization. Tomatoes are super, super heavy feeders, right? It takes a lot of fertilizer to make a good, healthy plant and then produce fruit. We grow all of our tomatoes with in hydroponic systems. So we use a hydroponic specific tomato formula or tomato blend. It's made by Master Blend, and I'm going to share that with you right here. We can take a look at what Master Blend is. Master Blend has the Master Blend portion of the tomatoes is a 41838 plus all the micronutrients. When we talk about 41838, that is your nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus. Okay, that's the three big numbers that we see on all fertilizer. And then we have micronutrients, and that's boron, copper, iron, manganese, zinc, right? All of those nutrients are also required for plants to grow and be successful. The tomato formula that we use, um, we have to add um, calcium nitrate, which is two things, right? It's nitrogen and then it's calcium. Tomatoes require a tremendous amount of calcium because if you don't, you'll get blossom end rot. And blossom end rot is extremely frustrating. It's a black spot on the bottom of the tomato, and basically, from where the blossom was, it begins to rot. And you'll have a tomato that's of size, and you'll go out there and it'll have black on the bottom. You'll be very, very disappointed. You can battle that with calcium. Any source of calcium you can get your hands on. If you want to put oyster shells in your raised beds, if you want to use eggshells, right, use that. It takes a little while for that to break down and to become available to the plants. But if you do it year after year, right, if that just becomes part of your cycle, okay, I'm going to put eggshells in it, okay, I'm going to put oyster shells, whatever it might be, you will build up a good um, um, source of calcium within your soil. The other portion that we have to add to the hydroponic mix is Epsom salt, magnesium sulfate. So that's two parts. It's magnesium and sulfur, right? And it's a salt, right? And the plants require magnesium to uptake some of the other nutrients, and they also require magnesium to grow. Um, so we have to put that in there also. So Master Blend Tomato Formula 41838, calcium nitrate, which is nitrogen and calcium, and then magnesium sulfate or Epsom salt. And that is what we use to grow our tomatoes. If you're growing in raised beds, you can use a balanced fertilizer. When I'm growing in raised beds, I use a lot of different fertilizers, folks, and it's because we grow a lot of different things, and a lot of different things require different stuff. Basics, right? Get a 10-10-10 fertilizer. If you have to add calcium or you might need some micronutrients, you could buy a liquid micronutrient. If you're trying to go all organic, there's a lot of products, a lot of organic products out there. Bone meal, blood meal, right? Uh, azomite. There's a lot of products that are available for organic growing. But for traditional growing, get a triple 10, triple 13, or triple 17. I also like to use a brand called Rainbow. Rainbow has all the micronutrients that you might need that your soil might be lacking. So it's a balanced fertilizer plus micronutrients, and that's always nice. So when I'm starting plants in my raised beds or in the rows, I'll put down some rainbow fertilizer, just because I want to make sure that those micronutrients are there and that I have a nutrient-rich environment before I put the plants in there. Side dressing, right? With hydroponics, I don't do any side dressing. It's always the same mix all the time, and it's just what the plants need, the way it's mixed. Okay, so every watering, right? So I'll come out here and it's green also. So I'll come out here and I'll give them a pint or so. It all depends on how they're growing, right? How many tomatoes are on the plant, how they're acting. You always want to make sure it stays moist if you're growing in hydroponics. Don't ever let it dry completely out. It will stunt the plant. And they just get upset, and you'll have small tomatoes. And yeah, you just don't want to do that. Let me swap back over here, folks. Give me just a quick second. I'll turn that off. Okay, so side dressing in raised beds or if you are growing in soil. Um, again, a balanced fertilizer. The main thing you need to focus on with tomatoes after they are established and they are setting fruit is you want to make sure that they have plenty of nitrogen. They are a heavy nitrogen feeder. So you can just feed just a nitrogen fertilizer. Um, and there's nothing wrong with that. You can get like a 34 nitrogen, um, or you can get I think it's a 22 nitrogen, and feed just nitrogen to your plants. And you just take just a little bit, sprinkle it right around the the base of the plant, and then scratch that into the soil, right? Um, so just for an example, if this was outdoors, right? Your stem, just put just a little right around the base of the plant, and then just kind of just scratch that in. You want to make sure that any fertilizer that you put around your plants, especially like a traditional fertilizer, you want to make sure that's incorporated into the soil somewhat. If you don't, if you just leave it laying right on top of the soil, it will evaporate into the atmosphere, right? And nitrogen belongs in the ground, not in the air. So um, I've seen guys just throw some fertilizer down on the ground and walk away. Um, and yeah, you're going to get some nutrient into the ground, right? Some of it's going to get in there, but I like to scratch it into the soil to make sure that you're um, getting that incorporated into the dirt so it can start breaking down and become available to the plants. If it's just sitting on top of the dirt, and if you think that plant's going to come up to the surface, like, um, and its mama come up there and spoon feed it that fertilizer, it's not going to happen. Incorporate that fertilizer into the soil, and it's going to be extremely helpful to you. And your plants are going to greatly appreciate it. So yeah, that's the basics of fertilizer, especially fertilizing tomatoes. You know, yeah, I really don't have anything else to add. So if you have some questions, let's go ahead and get into those. We're not going to spend a whole long time in here tonight, friends. I just got finished cutting the grass, and my wife, Noelle, she has dinner prepared. I'd like to take a shower before I have dinner. So let's just spend a few minutes. Let's talk about what you got going on. Chandra, you sent me some pictures the other day, and we chatted about that the other night. I think the pictures that you shared with me of your Cherokee purple that's in the pot, the leaf curl that you have, I do believe that is from a fluctuation in moisture in that pot, right? And it's because of the pot that you have it in. That looks like maybe a 2 or a 3 gallon pot. Um, you know, you might need to go out there and water that 3 times a day. As long as you've got holes in the bottom of that pot and it's draining well, I don't know that you could overwater that. Um, so just simply speaking, um, yeah. So I think it was just a little bit of stress. I still think you're going to make tomatoes. The tomatoes that you shared with me that were in the raised bed, those look fantastic. I mean, those look good. You're going to make some real nice tomatoes with those. Watering them right now. That's awesome. That is awesome. So if anybody else has any questions, um, suggestions, thoughts, if you feel like I'm doing something wrong over here growing the tomatoes that I'm growing, man, let's jump into it. Let's kind of chat about it. I do want to share with you how the tomatoes in the greenhouse are doing. While we wait for some questions, let's jump over here and take a look. This is Cherokee purple right here, friends. Man, this is my favorite tomato. We've talked about it. Look at those beautiful tomatoes. Cherokee purple loves to set a lot of fruit. And what I'm learning as the years go by is if you will prune off some of the flowers, it does a better job, right? It's got a great big truss there, for supporting tomatoes, but it can get too heavy. So if you will stop it from flowering, let it set 5, 6, 7 tomatoes, right? Just like I've done here, and then start cutting the rest of the blooms off. I think you're going to have a much more productive plant. Color is great. Here's another fruit truss, and these are looking wonderful. Here's what I'm talking about. You see, we've got fruit set here, right? There's fruit there, and then it shot out this stem, and it created more flowers, and then here's some more buds. So I'm going to terminate that, right? Let's go ahead and just do that now. Just pinch it off, cut it off, whatever it takes. And I think that's going to make a bigger, juicier tomato. And we have more blossom setting up here. Color is awesome. Now is a great time to also start looking for worms. Don't be afraid to turn the leaves over. Moths love to lay eggs on the bottoms of the leaves. If you've got 100 plants, that's a job. But if you've got 2 or 3 plants, don't be afraid to go out and just flip those leaves over and take a good look, right? So the last thing you want is to come out and see a bunch of worms on your tomatoes. That's just frustrating. Here is one of our cherry tomatoes. I believe this is sun gold, and we're getting sorry folks, I dropped my microphone there. We're getting fruit set on the bottom of this one, and look at all those beautiful little tomatoes there. This is one of my favorites. It's a super sweet yellow tomato. It's called Sun Gold, and they are wonderful. Again, take a look at your leaves. Make sure you don't see worms or whatever, right? Don't be afraid to mess with your tomato plants. Talk to them. Got beautiful flowers. It's time to put another clip on that one. Matter of fact, let me grab one right now. We use tomato clips to string up our tomatoes. They're just fantastic, and it's super easy. You just put that clip on the string. I'm going to try and do this, friends. Put that clip on there, and then come over here. You just snap it around there, and it holds that tomato in place, and it keeps it from rubbing against the string. And it's just the way I like to grow tomatoes. This is black cherry here, and you can see all the fruit that it's got set. I'm expecting to see some color pretty soon. Beautiful, beautiful plant. This one here is Cosmic Eclipse. Look at the color of the stem. You see how dark that stem is? That's a trait of Cosmic Eclipse. The tomatoes are black. When they ripen, they start to get a little red or a little orange. Beautiful, beautiful tomato. And this is another Sun Gold. So that's the tomato tour, y'all. Um, I love growing tomatoes in the greenhouse. It might turn into a thing for me. I mean, like, I might have to build another greenhouse just to grow tomatoes. Um, I've never grown them in the greenhouse before, and I'm just um, totally blessed by what's happening in here. I love that it's controlled. I love that they're getting the extra heat that they enjoy to grow. Just everything about it. They're not getting rained on, and they like that. They like that a lot. So, yeah, growing tomatoes in the greenhouse, so good, so good. Yeah. Jennifer, you said, do you pinch off just the leaf for worms or cut the branch? It depends on. Good question. Thanks for asking. It depends on the way the rest of the plant looks. You know, if I haven't pruned recently, I'll go ahead and take the whole leaf off. Right. If you have a big infestation of worms, you might have to do some pretty hefty pruning. You know, if you've just got one or two army worms, pluck those off and give them to the chickens. But sometimes you can get an infestation. Um, Look closely for tomato hornworms. They're really hard to see. Um, but for tomato hornworms, I just pluck those off. I don't take any leaves off. I just pluck the worm off because they're so large. Steve, they enjoy your carbon dioxide. That's right. Speak life into your plants. You're right. You're right, Steve. Man, they love for you to talk to them. That's for sure. I come out and talk to these every morning after I feed those chickens. So it's a good time out here in the greenhouse. We got all kind of stuff growing in the greenhouse. Noel has um, lots of basils and um, mints growing. And then I've got some okra, friends. As soon as I get the potatoes out of the front yard, I'm going to put this okra in there. Look at that beautiful okra. I got two different varieties here. We're going to see how they do. These are the suckers that I potted up today. We have a few pepper plants. If you're local and you're looking for some pepper plants, get in touch with us. We got some lemon balm, nasturtium, hibiscus. This Roselle hibiscus, by the way. And if you've never had our hibiscus tea, go ahead and go to the website, place an order for that. It's fantastic. This is an odd basil. We're not 100% sure what's up with it. We've tasted it. We just can't figure out what variety of basil it is. But it's definitely a basil. More nasturtiums. Oops, knocked my cup off. Marshmallow. That's a medicinal. Sage is another medicinal, but man, it's fantastic in your food. Let's see, what have we got here? That is, a toothache plant. Noel was telling me that little plant right there, she chewed up some of the leaves, and it made her. She said it made her gums go numb, and I was like, "Well, that's pretty cool." They call it the toothache plant because if you got a toothache, you want to chew on it. Give me a second, folks. I just ate some of that odd basil. Whew, praise the Lord. Back here, we have one of my favorites. This is called mammoth basil, and we love it in a salad. You can wrap up taco meat and make a taco out of it. It makes a big leaf, and I mean, it makes a leaf as big as my hand. And that's called mammoth basil. We love it. Back here we have teasel. Teasel is a really cool medicinal that is good for nerve pain. We're growing some of that this year. This is lemon balm, Thai basil. This is Tree of Life moringa. Noel's been growing that for several years and is doing a great job with it. Comfrey. We grow lots of comfrey because comfrey heals our body. Mullein, another awesome plant that's great for your lungs. This is wild lettuce. I know you've seen the ads on Facebook talking about wild lettuce, and it's how it's kind of like opium, that type of pain relief. More Thai basil, sunflowers, figs. Friends, I ran out of cable. I am attached, so. So if you got any other questions, let's go ahead and get those. We'll take about 3 more minutes. If you got prayer requests, man, put those out there. I believe that most of the people that hang out with Pruitt Homestead love and trust the Lord, right? And love to take time to pray for the Lord's will in everyone's life. So, I mean, if that's something you got going on and you want that to be a part of your life, you can put a comment here. You can send us a message, and we are happy to pray for you. We are encouraged to pray for you. We believe we have been witness to God's miracles from prayer. We've seen healings. We've seen, just a lot of things. So yeah, if you've got some prayer requests, put those on here. Mosquitoes are coming to get me, friends. And if y'all know me, mosquitoes eat me alive. So I'm not going to spend but just about 2 more minutes here. And I'm going to get out of here because I want to get a shower and get some supper. As always, share this with your friends. If you believe this is something that your friends might be encouraged by, right? Anything that we might talk about on here, please share this with your friends. We're trying to get to 2,500 followers, subscribers on Facebook, and then 500 on Instagram. And let me tell you, friends, we have a huge giveaway after we get to 2,500 and 500, right? We have to do that first. But we got a big package we're putting together as a giveaway to celebrate those milestones. So I'm excited about that. Share it with your friends. We're always grateful that you choose Pruitt Homestead to spend part of your day with, right? Sunday nights, if you jump on to porch time, and then Tuesdays now, man, we love that you have decided to take a little bit of time out of your day and come hang out and talk about some tomatoes. Not everybody in the world is a tomato fiend like I am. I told Noelle when we first met, it's kind of funny. She said, we were having lunch, and I said, "How do you feel about gardens?" She said, "Oh, I love gardens. I want to grow all kinds of food." And I said, "Okay." I said, "Well, you're going to have to try one of my tomatoes." And I said, "Here's the deal. After you eat one of my tomatoes, you won't eat a store-bought tomato anymore." And she laughed at me. But she doesn't eat store-bought tomatoes anymore. It's something, folks. The stuff that they're trying to feed us in the grocery store. It's pretty sad, and it's unfortunate that the majority of the population has decided that that's going to be okay for them and for their families. We have decided that that's not okay for us, and we want better, right? And better means that sometimes better means that you have to do it yourself, right? So we enjoy doing it. It's not a burden in our lives at all. And we hope that if you're encouraged by this and you begin to grow your own food, that it doesn't ever become a burden to your life, but that you're encouraged daily just by watching it grow and then by sharing it with your family and with your friends. All right, friends, that's it for tonight. Thanks for hanging out with me on Tuesday night for Tuesday Tomato Talk. We love you. We're grateful for you. We will see you Sunday. Love you. Bye.